The moment started small, just a few words tossed across the sideline. But what unfolded next revealed far more than anyone expected. Jeudy thought he could rattle Shedeur Sanders with some casual trash talk, maybe get under his skin for a split second. Instead, he stepped straight into a storm he couldn't even begin to control. On the surface, it looked like nothing more than a minor exchange, the kind of competitive heat you see in any NFL game. But anyone paying attention to the bigger picture could see there was tension layered underneath every syllable, every look, every gesture. This wasn't just about pride or a single play. It was about years of pressure, doubt, and unrelenting expectations that had been building up behind Shedeur's calm exterior. From the very first second, Shedeur stood perfectly still, measured, unshaken. Jeudy, on the other hand, came in with all the confidence of someone who thought he had the upper hand. Loud, brash, and sure he could provoke a reaction, he aimed to expose what he assumed was weakness. Fans watching might have expected Shedeur to flinch, to snap back, or even to get visibly rattled. But that didn't happen. Instead, the young quarterback remained cool, composed, and completely unshakable. The kind of calm you only develop after countless nights of pressure, criticism, and high-stakes games that would make most players buckle. What Jeudy failed to understand in that moment was that Shedeur wasn't just another opponent to be tested. He was a quarterback who had been carrying more than most could imagine, shouldering the weight of his team's hopes while navigating challenges that extended far beyond the field. The sideline exchange lasted mere seconds, but in those moments, the gulf between them was clear. Jeudy's energy was raw, reactive, emotional. He was trying to make a statement, to assert dominance in a fleeting confrontation. Shedeur's energy, by contrast, radiated patience, focus, and quiet strength. Every micro-expression, every calculated pause, spoke to someone who had faced far tougher situations than a single loud teammate or a casual jab. He had already dealt with injuries, scrutiny from fans, second-guessing from coaches, and a media environment that loved to pit him against anyone standing in his way. And yet, here he was, unflinching, a rock amid the chaos, showing that leadership isn't about reacting first. It's about staying steady when everything else is spinning out of control. What made this moment so captivating wasn't just the personalities clashing. It was what it exposed about the environment surrounding Shedeur. This was a young man who had been put in impossible spots, expected to perform flawlessly while others faltered around him. The confrontation with Jeudy became a symbol, a snapshot of a season filled with challenges that most viewers don't see. Poor calls from coaches, teammates not matching his effort, constant questioning from the media, and the unrelenting pressure to succeed at every turn. In just a few seconds, the exchange made it crystal clear who was really carrying the weight, who was truly built to handle the storm, and who was only playing at it. And by the end of it, there was no doubt. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just surviving the moment. He was dominating it in a way that left Jeudy, and everyone watching, completely exposed. Jeudy couldn't have picked a worse moment to test Shedeur Sanders, and the wild part is he probably didn't even realize it. On the surface, Jeudy came in looking fired up, ready to challenge somebody, maybe remind the rookie quarterback who the veteran on the team was. But underneath all that noise, there was a different story unfolding, one that had been building for weeks long before this confrontation ever happened. Because the truth is, Jeudy wasn't just talking to Shedeur that day. He was talking through his own frustrations, his own mistakes, and his own emotions that had been piling up without any real outlet. And Shedeur just happened to be standing there at the exact wrong time. People forget how emotional football really is. They see the highlights, the touchdowns, the celebrations. They don't see the pressure that sits on players' shoulders week after week. And recently, Jeudy had been feeling that pressure heavy. He had been dealing with criticism from fans, chatter online, and rumors suggesting he wasn't fully locked in. Even before this moment, he was already under the microscope. The dropped ball the week before didn't help. The inconsistent routes didn't help. His body language during key plays didn't help. And when fans start questioning your effort, it hits different. It sticks with you, especially when those questions feel louder every week. So when Jeudy approached Shedeur, it wasn't just trash talk. It was frustration boiling over. Reports claim he had been irritated during practice, annoyed at the offense's struggles, and unhappy with how often his name was getting dragged through conversations about what wasn't working. He wanted to release all of it, and instead of focusing inward, he projected it outward, straight at the one player who wasn't budging. And that's where Jeudy miscalculated. Because on that day, of all days, Shedeur was not the one to press. What Jeudy didn't understand was that Shedeur wasn't operating from emotion. He wasn't shaken. He wasn't rattled. He had already been through enough adversity this season to stay immune to sideline theatrics. He came into that moment with the calmness of someone who had been carrying the franchise on his back while being tested from every angle, media baiting him with loaded questions, fans scrutinizing every move, and coaches making decisions that placed him in difficult positions week after week. His patience wasn't weakness. It was resilience forged under nonstop pressure. So as Jeudy pushed forward with attitude, he didn't realize he was confronting a quarterback who had nothing to prove and no energy to waste on sideline dramatics. Shedeur wasn't feeling threatened. He wasn't feeling emotional. He was feeling tired of nonsense. And when someone already carrying that much weight meets someone trying to start unnecessary conflict, the contrast becomes glaring. Jeudy came in heated, but Shedeur came in hardened. And that's why this was the worst day for Jeudy to step to him. Because while Jeudy's frustration was peaking, Shedeur's tolerance for chaos was running on fumes. One man was spiraling. The other was standing firm. And in that imbalance, everything about Jeudy's approach fell apart, exposing him more than it affected Shedeur. From the moment Shedeur Sanders stepped into the league, the expectations on his shoulders were nothing short of enormous. Fans didn't treat him like a rookie. They treated him like the franchise's savior. Every throw, every mistake, every drive was judged with the intensity usually reserved for long-established veterans. And while most young quarterbacks get the luxury of time to grow, Shedeur walked straight into chaos. This wasn't a gentle introduction to the NFL. This was a baptism by fire, and everyone expected him to come out untouched. But what people don't see is how much pressure he's been carrying quietly, without complaint, long before Jeudy tried testing him on the sideline. Every single week, Shedeur faces a level of scrutiny that would crack many seasoned players. Media commentary is dissected instantly. Analysts exaggerate every flaw. Fans react wildly to every minor mistake. And no matter what happens, the spotlight never leaves him. Rumors suggest that internally, the organization has leaned heavily on him, sometimes too heavily, treating him less like a young quarterback developing in real time and more like the cure to all the roster's issues. That's not fair, and it's definitely not sustainable. Yet Shedeur never blames anyone, never points fingers. He just absorbs the pressure and keeps going. What makes it even tougher is the way coaching decisions have put him in difficult and sometimes even dangerous situations. Questionable 4th-and-1 calls, aggressive choices in the wrong field positions, and play designs that don't match the game flow have all stacked weight onto Shedeur's back. Instead of easing him into the league and building around his strengths, he's been forced to adapt to inconsistent support systems. Fans have noticed it. Analysts have questioned it. Reports even claim that some players privately feel the offense relies on Shedeur to fix broken plays rather than set him up for success. And through all of that, he never shifts the blame. Instead, he answers the media with patience and professionalism, even when they throw baited questions meant to stir controversy. Off the field, the noise is even louder. Doubters questioning whether he can handle the big stage. Critics nitpicking every aspect of his game. People comparing him to his father or demanding overnight perfection. Meanwhile, he deals with injuries, the physical grind, and the mental weight of representing not just himself but an entire football legacy. Most quarterbacks get time to adjust. Shedeur, he got a spotlight and a stopwatch. So when Jeudy tried to get in his face, what Jeudy didn't understand is that Shedeur had already survived far worse storms. He's been holding in frustration, swallowing criticism, and carrying expectations that most young players never experience. His calm in that moment wasn't indifference, it was experience. He's been hit harder, questioned deeper, pressured more intensely than a single sideline jab could ever match. And that's why the confrontation didn't shake him. He's been walking through chaos all season while keeping his composure intact. Jeudy's words might have been loud, but they couldn't compete with the weight Shedeur had already learned to carry with quiet strength. It only took one play, one route, one moment for everything surrounding this situation to shift. Because up until that point, people could still argue about emotions, intensity, and sideline energy. They could shrug off Jeudy's frustration as competitive fire or chalk up his outburst to a bad day. But when the footage of that route surfaced, everything changed instantly. It wasn't just fans talking anymore. Analysts, former players, and even neutral observers all saw the same thing. Something about that route didn't look right. And whether it was lack of focus, lack of effort, or something deeper, the moment forced everyone to question what was really happening behind the scenes. The play was simple on paper. Shedeur dropped back, read the field, and launched a perfectly placed deep ball. It was the kind of throw quarterbacks dream of making, timed beautifully, aimed precisely, and delivered in stride. It should have been a highlight. It should have been a momentum shift. It should have been a touchdown. Instead, what fans saw was Jeudy drifting through the route like it was optional. No acceleration. No fight for position. No arms extended to contest the catch. Just a slow, half-speed glide that made the entire play collapse before it even had a chance. When the clip circulated online, people didn't hesitate. They zoomed in. They slowed it down. They replayed it from every angle. And the same questions surfaced over and over. Why didn't he jump? Why didn't he reach? Why didn't he even try? Nobody expected perfection, but they expected effort. And that was the one thing missing. Analysts didn't even have to be harsh. The footage spoke for itself. Rumors quickly spread that some teammates were confused, wondering why Jeudy seemed disengaged on a wide-open opportunity. Fans speculated that he checked out mentally. And reports claimed that inside the building, conversations about accountability had already been happening long before this play hit the internet. But the person caught in the middle of all this was Jeudy. It was Shedeur. Because once again, he was the one being asked about the miscommunication. He was the one being questioned about the connection. He was the one being pushed to explain why the play didn't work. And instead of calling anyone out, Shedeur gave the calmest answer possible. Chemistry. He put it softly, respectfully, almost protectively. Even though anyone watching could tell the issue wasn't chemistry at all, it was effort. And that's where the narrative began to shift. People started noticing the pattern. Perfect throws turning into incomplete passes. Big opportunities fatting into nothing because someone didn't finish the route. A quarterback delivering under pressure while a receiver responded with half-hearted movement. It wasn't just fans saying it. Former players online echoed the same sentiment. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This looked like a trend. What made it even more revealing was how Shedeur handled it. No frustration, no finger-pointing, no throwing teammates under the bus, just composure, leadership, accountability, the exact traits you expect from a franchise quarterback. Meanwhile, the play exposed more about Jeudy's mindset than any press conference or stat line ever could. In that one route, the difference between the two players was crystal clear. One was fighting for everything. The other looked like he wasn't fighting at all. Jeudy's sideline outburst didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't random, it wasn't isolated, and it definitely wasn't surprising to the people who had been watching him closely over the last few weeks. Because the truth is, this moment was just the latest chapter in a growing pattern that fans, analysts, and even teammates have quietly noticed. A pattern of inconsistency, a pattern of frustration. And most importantly, a pattern of effort that doesn't match the expectations placed on him. You don't get this much smoke without some kind of fire, and lately, Jeudy has been surrounded by smoke everywhere he turns. It started subtle, dropped balls in low-pressure situations, sloppy footwork on routine routes, hesitations at the top of his brakes. Fans brushed it off at first. Everyone has bad days. Everyone has mistakes. But then the moments became more frequent. The miscommunication turned into confusion. The confusion turned into visible frustration. The frustration turned into something worse, body language that screamed disengagement. Football insiders began pointing out how often Jeudy would jog through plays, how his energy shifted depending on the situation, and how his effort seemed inconsistent from drive to drive. But the moment that really made people question his mindset was the fumble the week before the confrontation with Shedeur. A routine play turned into a disaster because Jeudy looked casual with the ball, almost careless. When the clip went viral, viewers didn't hold back. Some said he wasn't locked in. Others said he wasn't playing with urgency. A few even suggested he wasn't mentally present. And instead of proving them wrong the following week, the deep ball route, where he barely extended his arms, only fueled the narrative further. Rumors started circulating online, nothing confirmed, but enough to spark conversation. Some fans speculated that Jeudy had been frustrated with his role in the offense. Others claimed he didn't like the system. A few whispered that he wasn't connecting with teammates the way he needed to. Whether any of that is true or not, the perception was spreading rapidly. Jeudy wasn't playing like someone fighting with everything he had. He was playing like someone wrestling with something internal he couldn't shake off. And that's the part that stings. Because when Shedeur steps on the field, he's giving everything he has, physically, mentally, emotionally. He's battling pressure from every angle, yet his effort never slips. The contrast became impossible to ignore. Every time Shedeur delivered a perfect throw, fans held their breath, not knowing whether the receiver would finish the play or let another golden opportunity slip away. And too often, those opportunities slipped. Former players took notice. Analysts started pointing it out. Some said it looked like Jeudy was going half-speed on critical routes. Others noted how quickly he gave up when coverage got tight. Meanwhile, Shedeur kept taking the heat publicly, absorbing the blame for plays that fell apart long before the ball touched his hands. That's why the narrative around Jeudy became so heavy. Not because of one moment, but because of many. Not because fans were overreacting, but because the pattern was becoming impossible to deny. And with every shaky route, every missed chance, every frustrated gesture, the spotlight grew harsher, not on Shedeur, but on the receiver who was supposed to help him succeed. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped up to the podium and said the miscommunication with Jeudy might have been chemistry, everything about this storyline shifted. Because anyone who watched that play, even for a split second, knew exactly what they saw. They saw a quarterback drop a perfect ball into a window only a handful of players can hit. They saw a receiver jog through the route, barely extend his arms, and let a guaranteed highlight slip away. But instead of calling it what it looked like, Shedeur did what real leaders do. He shielded the people around him, even when they didn't deserve it. That's the part people often overlook about Shedeur. They see the calm, they see the confidence, they see the poise. But what they don't always see is the weight behind that composure. He's constantly navigating situations where he has to protect others, teammates, coaches, the entire offense, while taking hits from the media, the fans, and every critic waiting for him to slip. And yet, even with all that pressure, he refuses to throw anyone under the bus. Instead, he absorbs the blow, softens the narrative, and gives teammates the benefit of the doubt. When he called the failed route a chemistry issue, he wasn't telling the world what actually happened. He was protecting the locker room. Reports suggest players respect him because he never singles anyone out, no matter how obvious the mistake is. And that's exactly why this moment stood out so clearly. Jeudy didn't fight for the ball. He didn't give full effort. He didn't even show basic urgency. But Shedeur still stepped in front of the criticism, holding the line for a teammate who had just made him look bad on national television. The crazy part is that this isn't a one-time thing. Shedeur has been taking responsibility for situations that aren't his fault all season long. Bad play calling, he answers for it. Missed blocks, he takes the questions. Receivers running the wrong depth, he smiles and talks about communication. Analysts have even said he's protecting people who should be protecting him. And yet he continues doing it because he understands something crucial. When the quarterback starts pointing fingers, the entire locker room cracks. But here's the painful truth. While Shedeur is carrying the accountability, others aren't carrying their share. Jeudy's lack of effort is one example. Stefanski's questionable decisions are another. Missed assignments, broken routes, poor execution, time and time again, Shedeur gets asked to explain failures he didn't create. And every time he gives the same steady, team-first answer. That's what makes his leadership so powerful and so rare. He doesn't let the pressure twist him. He doesn't let frustration leak into the media. He doesn't let mistakes turn into drama. Instead, he stands in front of the fire, taking the heat while everyone else gets to cool off behind him. And ironically, the more blame he takes, the clearer it becomes who's really holding this team together. Jeudy may have been the loudest on that sideline, but Shedeur was the strongest. Jeudy showed emotion, Shedeur showed maturity. And in a season filled with questions, that difference is becoming impossible to ignore. The moment Shedeur Sanders walked into the post-game presser, the mood shifted. Cameras tightened. Reporters leaned forward. You could feel it, this wasn't just a routine Q&A, this was a setup. The media had smelled smoke all week, and now they wanted the fire. They wanted the headline. They wanted the fracture. And the easiest way to get it? Push Shedeur into saying something, anything, that could be spun into Shedeur Sanders calls out Kevin Stefanski. From the very first question, the trap was obvious. Reporters didn't ask about the touchdown drive. They didn't ask about the accuracy, the poise, the resilience. They went straight to the controversy, straight to the tension, straight to the storyline they were desperate to manufacture, a young quarterback losing faith in his head coach. The questions were crafted with surgical precision. Do you feel the play calling put you in a tough spot? Was the communication issue something from the sideline? Has the coaching staff adjusted enough to your strengths? These weren't genuine questions. They were bait, carefully worded attempts to get Shedeur to slip, to assign blame, to feed the cycle of outrage the media thrives on. They wanted him to point the finger upward, to show frustration, to give them the soundbite they could replay on every sports network the next morning. But Shedeur didn't bite. Instead, he did what most quarterbacks twice his age struggle to do. He deflected without sounding defensive, protected without sounding rehearsed, and kept his composure even when the questions got increasingly bold. He didn't criticize Stefanski. He didn't hint at tension. He didn't show even a flicker of irritation. He simply said the one thing he knew would shut down the entire angle. We all could have been better, me included. 8 words, no drama, no headline for them to weaponize. And that's exactly why the reporters kept pushing. They rephrased. They circled back. They tried again. Because they already knew the narrative fans were talking about online, that the play designs were predictable, that Stefanski wasn't adjusting to Shedeur's strengths, that the team was wasting elite quarterback talent. The media wanted Shedeur to validate that frustration. They wanted him to confirm the story everyone else was already writing. But what they didn't understand, what they still don't understand, is that Shedeur plays the game on and off the field at a different level. He knows the politics of the NFL. He knows the danger of a single out-of-context quote. He knows the consequences of publicly undercutting a coach in a season already loaded with pressure. So instead of taking the easy path, he took the disciplined one. He talked about execution, about unity, about the team needing to lock in. Not once did he mention Stefanski by name in a negative context. Not once did he allow the press to twist his words. And not once did he let frustration show, despite the fact that anyone watching could see the frustration simmering beneath the surface. In that moment, Shedeur didn't just avoid a media trap. He demonstrated exactly why he's becoming the face of the franchise, poised under pressure, focused on solutions, and refusing to let external chaos fracture the team from within. And ironically, the more the media tries to bait him, the more obvious it becomes. He's already outsmarting them. The moment the sideline clip went viral, something unsettling became crystal clear. This wasn't just about Jeudy losing his cool or Shedeur Sanders staying composed. This was about a team that had slowly slipped into a culture where accountability was optional, except for one player who refused to let standards drop. And that player wasn't the veteran. It wasn't the captain. It wasn't the highest-paid star. It was the rookie quarterback, who somehow cared more about responsibility than half the locker room combined. As the Browns tried to move past the incident, the reactions inside the facility revealed a deeper issue. Instead of teammates pulling Jeudy aside, reminding him of expectations, or even checking in with their young QB, most guys acted like nothing happened. Some shrugged it off. Some quietly joked about it. Others didn't want to get in the middle of it, because that's the kind of locker room Cleveland has been for years. Talent. Yes, accountability, barely hanging on. There was no players-only meeting. No veteran stepping up to say, "This can't happen again." No moment of unity. Everyone just moved on, the same way they move on from blown assignments, lazy routes, missed tackles, or half-hearted effort. It's a culture where guys blame the refs, blame the scheme, blame the weather, anything except the man in the mirror. And yet, in the middle of all that finger-pointing, Shedeur stood out precisely because he did the opposite. He always took responsibility, sometimes too much. He'd walk into a presser after a game where he threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns and still say, "I gotta be better." He'd talk about what he could have done differently, even when any rational viewer knew the mistakes weren't on him. It wasn't just maturity, it was leadership the team desperately lacked. And that's what made the Jeudy confrontation sting even more. Jeudy wasn't yelling at a QB who hides from mistakes. He wasn't barking at a guy who blames coaches or teammates. He was snapping at the one player who consistently owned his part, even when he wasn't the problem. The irony couldn't be louder. But here's the real issue. When accountability disappears from a locker room, everything else follows. Preparation slips, execution slips, standards slip, and the Browns have been slipping for years. New coaches, new quarterbacks, new systems, it doesn't matter. The same culture of excuses lingers every time. And yet, the youngest guy in the room refuses to let it infect him. What makes it even more revealing is how players respond to Shedeur behind the scenes. Instead of rallying around him after a public confrontation, most players acted passive, waiting for the moment to fade away. Only a handful checked in with him. Only a couple voiced support. There was no collective rally, no internal demand for higher standards. But Shedeur didn't flinch. If anything, moments like this only deepen his resolve, because he knows what the team lacks, and he knows what it will take to change it. Consistency, responsibility, and accountability from someone willing to carry it even when no one else does. And right now, he's the only one in the building willing to do that. Which is why the next part of the story matters even more, because the breaking point wasn't the argument itself. It was what came after. There are moments in a season that feels small in real time, but once everything plays out, you look back and realize that was the turning point. And for the Browns, that moment didn't come from a game-winning drive or a locker room blow-up. It happened quietly behind the scenes, in a moment most fans will never see, but every player in the building felt. It started the day after the Jeudy incident, when the tension around the facility was heavier than usual. The coaches were on edge. Veterans walked around pretending the locker room wasn't fractured. Everyone acted like things were fine, because saying otherwise meant admitting the team had problems no one wanted to confront. Leaders avoided eye contact. Position groups stayed isolated. The usual trash talk was gone, replaced by awkward silence. But in the middle of all that discomfort, Shedeur did something no one expected. During a film session that had gone off the rails, players quietly blaming each other, coaches getting irritated, the whole room walking on eggshells, Shedeur stood up. Not physically, not dramatically, but in the way that matters in the NFL. He spoke with a tone that instantly shifted the energy. He simply said, "If we're gonna talk about mistakes, start with mine." And the room froze. Because everyone knew the truth. His mistakes weren't the problem. His reads were clean. His timing was sharp. His execution was miles ahead of where any rookie should be. But instead of pointing fingers or allowing others to hide behind excuses, he dragged the spotlight onto himself. And by doing that, he exposed everyone else. He forced every player to look inward without calling anyone out. He raised the standard without shamming a single teammate. He showed what leadership looks like when the fake leaders in the room weren't willing to do it. And then came the moment, the one thing that revealed who was really keeping this team together. As he kept talking, players started straightening up. Phones went down, eyes locked in. Even the veterans who normally coasted through meetings suddenly leaned forward. The room, which 5 minutes earlier felt like a powder keg, shifted into something else entirely: focus, accountability, direction. Not because a coach demanded it. Not because a captain enforced it. Because the rookie they had just watched get disrespected on national TV refused to let the team splinter any further. The coaches noticed it. The staff noticed it. Even the front office, watching from the back, felt something change. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. Shedeur was the one holding everything together, not through speeches, not through force, but through example. And in that moment, the organization realized something uncomfortable. Their emotional anchors weren't the captains. Their stabilizing force wasn't the coaching staff. Their accountability wasn't coming from the veterans. It was coming from the 22-year-old carrying more pressure than anyone else in the room, and handling it better than all of them. Shedeur wasn't just surviving the chaos. He was keeping the team from completely falling apart. But what happened next would prove just how much weight he was carrying, and how close everything was to collapsing without him. When everything is finally stripped down, when the noise fades, the finger-pointing slows, and the truth becomes impossible to hide, one thing becomes clear. Shedeur Sanders walks out of this entire situation stronger, sharper, and more respected than ever. Not because everything around him is stable, not because the team is thriving, but because every bit of chaos surrounding him has unintentionally revealed exactly who he is and what he's built for. Most rookies crumble when drama hits the locker room. They panic when teammates start slipping, when the media tries to bait them, when coaches put them in impossible positions. They react emotionally, lash out, or shut down. But Shedeur did the exact opposite. He grew. He showed control in moments designed to shake him. He displayed maturity that shouldn't exist at his age. He led a locker room that refused to lead itself. And he stayed calm in storms that veteran quarterbacks would drown in. This Jeudy confrontation didn't expose Shedeur's weaknesses. It exposed everyone else. It showed who loses composure under pressure, who hides behind excuses, and who collapses when the spotlight gets hot. Meanwhile, Shedeur stood unbothered right in the middle of it. His poise made others look unprepared. His discipline made others look childish. His consistency made others look unreliable. That's what real leadership does. It doesn't just elevate the leader. It exposes the truth about everyone around him. And that truth is simple. The Browns are functioning right now because Shedeur gives them something no one else does: stability. He's the emotional center of the team. The one player the locker room listens to. The only person who refuses to throw anyone under the bus even when he has every right to. That kind of character doesn't disappear. It grows. It spreads. It defines franchises. Even the media couldn't knock him off balance. They tried twisting his words, baiting him into blaming his coach, and pushing narratives he refused to entertain. But Shedeur answered with maturity, respect, and control, qualities the organization desperately needs but rarely shows. And while Stefanski continues gambling with reckless fourth-down calls that leave his quarterback hanging, Shedeur refuses to take the easy route of pointing fingers. He simply keeps playing, keeps competing, keeps carrying the entire burden without flinching. That's why fans are starting to rally behind him. That's why analysts are finally taking notice. And that's why NFL veterans, guys who know how rare this is, are quietly saying, "That kid is different." The more adversity hits, the clearer the picture becomes. Shedeur doesn't just survive pressure, he defines himself through it. And in moments like this, greatness doesn't need hype. It doesn't need a PR push. It doesn't need excuses. It reveals itself organically. The Jeudy conflict, the root controversy, the media baiting, the coaching missteps, every one of those obstacles has only strengthened Shedeur's image. He looks like the adult in a room full of people still trying to figure themselves out. He looks like the leader the Browns didn't know they desperately needed. And most importantly, he looks ready. Ready to elevate. Ready to take over. Ready to become the franchise cornerstone he was always meant to be. When the dust settles, the story isn't about drama, blame, or conflict. It's about the moment the world realized. Shedeur Sanders isn't just built for pressure. He's built to rise above everyone who can't handle it.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.